hit the record button here. All right, welcome everyone. I'm Denise Demese. I'm the Director of Faculty Development for the University System of Georgia. And I am so pleased to have our three presenters here today, Susan Hrach, Judy, Orton, Grissett, and Jody. Why do I always forget how to say your last name? Baudier? Let's go with that. And they're going to talk to us about student readiness and returning to the classroom. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to them.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Susan Hrach. I'm the director of the Faculty Center for the Enhancement of Teaching and Learning at Columbus State. So I am very pleased this morning to see such a great turnout, and I'm going to let my co-presenters introduce themselves, and then we have a little opening exercise.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Judy Orton Grissett. I'm the Director of Experiential Learning at Georgia Southwestern State University.
Hi, everyone. I'm Josie Baudier, and I am the Director of the Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning at Georgia Highlands College.
All right, so in order to begin this morning, I'm going to invite everyone to be present in this space with these people at this time by doing a very short, under 3-minute body scan exercise. It's a contemplative practice just to help us to focus and be here. So I would invite you to turn off your cameras if you'd like to for the next few minutes, and just tune in and follow along with the instructions.
Begin by bringing your attention into your body. You can close your eyes if that's comfortable to you. You can notice your body seated, wherever you're seated, feeling the weight of your body on the chair, on the floor. You can take a few deep breaths. And as you take a deep breath, bring in more oxygen, enlivening the body. And as you exhale, have a sense of relaxing more deeply. You can notice your feet on the floor. Notice the sensations of your feet touching the floor, the weight and pressure, vibration, heat. You can notice your legs against the chair, pressure, pulsing, heaviness, lightness. Notice your back against the chair. Bring your attention into your stomach area. If your stomach is tense or tight, let it soften. Take a breath. Notice your hands. Are your hands tense or tight? See if you can allow them to soften. Notice your arms. Feel any sensations in your arms. Let your shoulders be soft. Notice your neck and throat. Let them be soft. Relax. Soften your jaw. Let your face and facial muscles be soft. Then notice your whole body present. Take one more breath. Be aware of your whole body as best you can. Take a breath, and then when you're ready, you can open your eyes.
Okay, thank you for participating. I hope that was a nice way for you to feel ready for the next 55 minutes, I guess, of paying attention. We wanted to give you that experience both to help you kind of prepare for this webinar, but also as an idea that you might share with your students. And we'll talk more about that later in the webinar. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Judy, who's going to provide us with a little background about the cognitive psychology behind student readiness.
Hi, good morning. Thank you, Susan, for that. Katie Christensen put in the chat here. That was lovely. Thank you. And very much agree to kind of put you into that different space. All right.
Judy, would you like to do the Menti meter first?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. I'll wait here. I'll hold off on sharing. Go ahead, Josie, if you've got that ready.
Okay, so the link to the Menti is in the chat. I just popped it in there, and you should be able to go to that link and you would see a question. Is that happening for you?
Mm-hmm.
Able to type in an answer to the question? Okay, I see some nods. So how do you feel about returning to campus? We're gonna get a little inventory of your feelings, and then we're gonna ask you to do a little prediction in a moment after this one. So you should be able to type right there. Good, there we go. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen so you all can see.
And Josie, this one here. Okay, all right, never mind. At the top, it said, for me at least, it said about students. And so a little drop down came down. And so someone else might need to do that. Just switch the slide.
Okay, so you should see the question that says, how do you feel about returning to campus? And do you all see the answers popping up there? Okay, good. Okay. So we have 90 participants. So I'm going to let a few of them come in before I speak about them. So here we go. Did we ever leave? Someone asks. I don't know. Another person, did we ever leave? Oh my goodness. Okay, I love this. It's so many excited people, but we do have anxious and hesitant, concerned about your own health, which you have a absolute right to be, apprehensive, nervous, looking forward to teaching face-to-face maybe. And so great. Okay, so let me, pretty good. Okay, now I'm going to stop sharing just for a moment because I need to gather my other Mentimeter because we want to know also about how the students are doing. So do you have a question about students? How do you think your students feel about returning? Do you see that question? How do you think your students feel about returning to? Okay. Okay, so for some reason, all the answers are all just on one on one slide for me over here. So that's different. That's okay. I'll share that screen so we can see. How do you think your students feel about returning? So here we go. So we have some people who wrote in about their students and said, most of my students don't like online or remote learning, so they're excited to come back. Probably mixed feelings like the faculty, excited, it's a mystery, looking forward to it, generally eager. So these are really great responses. Thank y'all so much for playing along with us and giving us a feel of how you are feeling about returning to campus, but also how you think your students are. And what we're going to address here is just that. Why do we feel the way we feel? And then some strategies to help us and our students become a little bit more acclimated and ready to dig in. I just want to mention one thing real quick. I read an article or saw someone on a podcast or something talking about using the phrase return to normal. And I didn't have a chance to talk about this with my team before we started. And someone said, you know, it's the phrase return to normal could mean comfort for some, but for others, it could mean that something completely opposite, that they're never going to have a normal again, depending on what they experienced in the last 18 months or so. So we have to really be careful about using that term. So because some of our students and some of our people in this group here today, you know, they're never going to be back to normal. That's not going to be possible for them. So we need to really be careful about using that terminology. So I just wanted to mention that, you know, it might come out of our mouth today, but I just wanted to say, you know, let's put that in the back of our mind when we start school in the fall.
Josie, I think that that's such a good point. And it does tie back into what we were talking about a little bit earlier today. And something I was reflecting on is that, you know, we have this slide here, you know, why is it so difficult to teach and learn right now? And this is kind of assuming that we're all in the same place with coming back, that us as faculty and staff are at the same place coming back, that our students will all be at the same place coming back. But as we know, we've all had different kinds of experiences.
Judy, move your screen to the presentation. Sorry.
Yeah, we're looking at the voting slide.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I did. Let's see. Okay. Can you see that now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry about that. So this idea of, you know, why is it so difficult to teach and learn right now? Again, you know, assuming that we're all coming at this at different places. That we've all had different experiences. So for some of us, you know, we may have already passed some of our more difficult moments than we had in the, you know, than we are having now. And for others, we may be kind of moving into a more difficult moment as we're moving into the new semester and the new academic year. So I'm just going to kind of take this from a kind of an overall broad perspective to begin with, drawing from a biopsychosocial model that we use in health psychology. So when I teach health psychology, I should say that my training is psychology. I've been a psychology faculty member here at GSW since 2013. And so when we talk about, you know, well-being and our health, we think about our well-being and our health, and well-being being our mental well-being, our physical well-being, social, spiritual well-being. We think about it from different, as in different dimensions, right? We have our biological health, our psychological health, our social health, or social well-being, and all of these are interconnected. And so when we think about, we can think about maybe some of our own experiences, or we can think of a hypothetical situation of, I think of someone taking a new medicine, right? So the new medicine is going to affect someone's biology. And that new medicine may be helping with one kind of symptom, but it may cause drowsiness. It may cause kind of foggy thinking. And that foggy thinking, that drowsiness can move into someone's cognitive functioning, to affect their psychological well-being. People might not be as alert at work. They may be sleeping in, and, you know, students may be missing classes. So it affects those social circles that people are a part of. So when we think about ourselves and we think about our students as they're coming back into this upcoming academic year, we can kind of think about these different pieces of themselves, you know, and how all of these fit together. Part of what impacts everyone or every part of people's lives is stress. And we can think about the past year for people's experiences and how stress has affected, you know, the way people think, has affected people's bodies. You know, my last dentist appointment, my dentist was talking about how she has seen more people these past few months with jaw tension, you know, the clenching, the grinding. She said people that have never had that issue before are, for the first time, are having that physiological effect. So, you know, the stress, and this is, we experience this, we know this, but sometimes it's helpful to stop and think that, okay, these stressful experiences are really touching each part of our lives and of our students' lives. The behavior and the mind is really what we, as faculty, as staff, of people who are going to be working maybe directly or maybe indirectly with students this upcoming year, is that how has that stress impacted our students' behaviors? You know, even our good students have their behaviors have been impacted. We may see some of those strong students who have been really, just really good students throughout their time here, but the past year may have been more likely to kind of check out, may be faltering on maybe assignments, maybe not turning assignments in, or their grades may be impacted. So something to consider as we're thinking about working with our students. When we think about students, and we think about stress levels, Hans Selye has this model that he introduced. It's called the General Adaptation Syndrome model. And I think about this a lot. And outside of this past year, because stress is not a monolith, right? Stress does not happen where we are either completely stressed, completely maxed out, or not stressed at all, right? We know that some stress is good. We know that some stress lights that fire in us, that it's like, all right, we've got these things to do, let's take care of it. And that's kind of that upward here, where that resistance, you see that high point. And that's where it's good to be. It's good to be resistant to that, the negative effects of stress. It's good to have that momentum. It motivates us. It makes us more productive. But you see on the two ends, you see on the alarm end and the exhaustion end, you see those dips. Okay, and that's dips in our physical well-being, it's dips in our mental well-being. It's when we are stressed to the point where we have that fight, flight, or freeze reaction, where we don't know what to do. And this alarm reaction in terms of the pandemic, I think it back to March of 2020, where it's one of those moments where I remember where I was, I remember what I was doing when I called the email. The email that said that, we're going on a hiatus for 2 weeks. And I just felt that like drain of, oh no, what's about to happen? And I had that moment of freezing, I didn't know what to do. It was one of those flashbulb memories. I was at the Teaching Matters conference, unloading my van at the hotel, was getting stuff out. And I just remember that as clear as day. And, but shortly after, there was this kind of momentum, like, all right, we've got to move classes online. We've got to do this. Let's do this. And for many of us and many of our students, they went through, a very similar experience on their end is, all right, let's do this and kind of charge ahead. But after over a year, where many people are, and maybe this happened earlier, depending on people's circumstances, before now, is being in that state of exhaustion where just our resources have been maxed out. All of that oomph, all of that fire has been gone. It has been used. And so now a number of people, including our students, when they come back this upcoming year, are going to be like the image on the right, just really don't feel like they have anything left to give. So how do you harness that? How do you recharge? How do you move out of that state of exhaustion? And in the upcoming year, how do we prevent ourselves and prevent our students from getting back into that state of exhaustion? Just a quick point here that, when we're getting into that state of exhaustion, that high level of stress, our executive functioning, our ability to make good decisions, our ability to kind of think about big picture, plan, organize, it's impacted. We tend to become more forgetful. We tend to have those moments of like, what was I just thinking about? What was I just doing? For many people who have had distractions at home or have just felt overwhelmed by the online working and learning experience, have experienced that. So that's something that we'll continue to contend with moving into this upcoming academic year. So a lot of this connects to this book, to this work by Sia Verschelden. Her book, Bandwidth Recovery, is called Helping Students Reclaim Cognitive Resources, Lost to Poverty, Racism, and Social Marginalization. This book was published in 2017, so this is pre-pandemic, but a lot of the information that is covered in the book can be very much applied to the situation that people are facing today, including our students. So going back to the first point, that the pandemic has not affected everyone equally. We know that, I think back to Madonna sitting in the milk bath of talking about the pandemic as the great equalizer. It hasn't been an equalizer. People have been affected differently, depending on race, depending on social standing, economic standing. Students who are living in poverty have had a very different experience this past year than students who are not living in poverty. So I highly recommend this book. And as we move forward, Josie's going to talk more about some of the work that Vershelden has shared here. So again, just a point too about our students as they're coming in, their bandwidth has been taxed. Vershelden talks about this, this tax, that when we are thinking about something else, it is hard to think about anything else, right? We can only focus consciously on one thing at a time. So if a student is coming in to the semester thinking about the family, maybe they've been living with the past year, maybe have been helping to support this past year, that may still be on their minds when they're coming into the class. So how do we work with those students? And Josie and Susan are going to be sharing some about that. Just before we move into that, I want to tie this idea of scarcity, which is another idea that Vershelden discusses in her book. Same thing or a very similar thing, that when people are lacking something, when we're lacking, people are lacking time, maybe lacking sleep, lacking money, lacking happiness, lacking some resource, we're more likely to focus on that resource, right? Where we think about it. If something is happening in our lives, it's hard not to think about that, right? So it draws those cognitive resources to those urgent demands. Our minds are saying, this is more important, this is more important. And so we tend to ignore the other things that are happening in our lives. And for our students, there's other things that are happening in their lives is, their classes, coming into campus and kind of orienting themselves onto campus and becoming part of, having that become part of their identity again, part of their routine, part of their habit. So before Susan, I just want to kind of segue into what she'll be talking about. So when we're coming into the classroom or coming onto campus, and I know a lot of us have already been working on campus, but more fully this upcoming year, just maybe think, and this is something I've been telling myself, it's like, I don't need to take it all on at once. I don't need to take the classroom or take my work on, by storm. And, I can slowly ease into this and stay mindful. How am I feeling? How am I doing? How are my students doing? How are my colleagues doing? Taking this time to reflect, think about our own well-being and the well-being of our students. 2 webinars ago, Denise Demese, Becky Johnston had a fantastic session on reflective practices. So this kind of emotional disclosure may be something that we can consider doing more of in our own, classrooms, maybe for ourselves, is that reflective practice, which we know that when we reflect on things, we kind of put things into perspective and think about them a little bit differently. So we're gonna move into Susan, if you want to go talk a little bit about these activities.
Thank you, Judy. And I feel like I'm a live example today of exhaustion plus tax bandwidth, because I forgot about the Menti poll at the beginning of our session, skipped right over Josie. So I apologize for that mistake. And luckily we were able to just regroup and get it in anyway. What I want to share with you is the site that I used for that body scan exercise that we began with. It is free and available through UC Berkeley. And the site that I have listed here is, and I'm going to go ahead and type that into the chat, specifically directed at anxiety in college students and stress. But I encourage you to spend more time scrolling through the resources at this Greater Good in Education site, because they have a number of different resources here, lots of very user-friendly kind of blocks like you see here that focus on different exercises that you can use for yourself and for your students. And what I have found especially wonderful about them is that they guide you, they provide you with the audio. It's all really manageable, short things. Most of them are under 15 minutes. And so I have found them to be a really valuable thing to begin class with. And I've used them both for online classes and hybrid classes. Students seem to really appreciate being able to have evidence that you care about their health and well-being, and helping them to focus in order to get what we need out of the learning experience ahead. Each of these practices that the Greater Good website lists also has the research and evidence. They have scholarly articles attached to each of the practices so that you can share with your students, what the psychological research is that is in support of the use of these practices. And then they've also recently linked to Laurie Santos's Science of Happiness podcast. Laurie Santos is the Yale psychology professor who taught their super successful class on the science of happiness a couple of years ago, pre-pandemic even. And that has become a Coursera course and just a hugely, popular resource for people inside and outside of higher education. So I wanted to just offer you first an encouragement to, get brave and try some of these short exercises as ways to open class with your students, as a way for, I found it really good for me as well as for them to just sort of take a deep breath and prepare for class. And I found it really useful just because I am not a mindfulness expert. I'm not a yoga teacher. I have no, disciplinary background in any of these practices. And so it's been a real comfort to me to feel like I can lean on this expert guide and not have to be the person who's leading these exercises. So next, I want us to just think about what we're asking of ourselves and everybody else to come back to an in-person classroom. I know that just the very effort of having to get in the shower and get dressed and get yourself into campus is going to be a pretty big deal. And so I want to encourage us to really treat this time with great respect. And to think about the fact that delivering content is not the same as learning, that we need to offer our students an experience. And if we can give them a lot of variety in their learning experiences, this is going to be the way that we can help them to recover some of that bandwidth and to be able to, focus on the exciting process really of learning about new things. So in order to give them experiences, those of us who don't have the benefit already built into our discipline of having labs or studio focused hands-on experiences need to think about how we might provide them with a way to have this sort of in-person or firsthand live experience with the content. So I'm going to give you a few examples of what that might look like. And then I want everyone to think about how you might be able to create that for your own discipline. So for example, would there be any special objects that you might have, taken for granted or thought of as very ordinary, connected to your discipline, that you might be able to bring into class and have students handle and notice and pay close attention to. That'd be one idea, to use objects. Another idea might be to have them tune in only to their sense of hearing and listen to something in class while you station them around the room at whiteboards or with portable whiteboards, and have them all simultaneously taking notes on something special that you want them to hear, from a clip from a podcast, something, a story, something that might be getting their imaginations going, that they could sketch, either, drawings or notes. One for last idea, and then I'm going to let you think about what you might want to try for your own context, would be to actually leave the classroom altogether and go somewhere maybe on campus, or if you have the resources to be able to provide them a way to get off campus, but to go to see something, maybe at your library or a center on campus that could provide some firsthand experience with the material. All right, so there's some ideas just to get you going. I'm going to ask you to do a chat pop exercise where I'm going to give you 60 seconds to think of an idea for creating this lab or studio with your own disciplinary setting, and type into the chat, but don't hit send, what that idea might be. And then at the end of 60 seconds, we'll all hit send at the same time and see kind of our wide range of ideas. So I'm going to set the timer here, and let's think about an idea that you could apply in your own classroom. Go. So as you come up with your idea, go ahead and type it in so it's ready to send, but don't hit send yet. All right, 10 seconds. Okay, let's hit send. What have we got? Woo! It's exciting to see the scroll. Fantastic. Okay, so we're going to have to scroll up and have a look at some of these. Role playing. That's right. Passing balls. Field trip to the Student Success Center. Love it. It's great to be able to take them to resources on campus and have them have that firsthand experience, especially for first-year students. Paper maps. That's right. Working with a device or object. Terrific. These are great ideas. So I encourage everybody to scroll through and see what your colleagues have come up with. I'm always impressed by the creativity of our fellow teachers. So as you're perusing others' ideas, I'm going to pass the ball now. Josie?
Yep, I'm ready. Thank you. Hi, everyone. So Susan put us in a great place to take a moment, one more moment to look at what other strategies we can bring into the classroom to, as Judy put it, help them reclaim their bandwidth. And then I have a slide that's going to actually pertain to you in the classroom after this one. So going back to Sia Sheldon's work in bandwidth recovery, she talks about how our students have the intelligence to do the work that we ask them to do to be successful in our classes, but sometimes they do not have the bandwidth. And so it's really up to us in this time to help create that, or it is our responsibility in the classroom to help create that opportunity for students to start to reclaim some of the bandwidth and find a way for them to be successful. So I pulled a few of Sia's strategies, and then I have a couple of others that I'll mention as well. The first thing that she talks about in her bandwidth recovery book is having students recognize their own personal values. So they come to the class with things, we know that. We know they're not blank slates, they're not empty vases. They come with things. She calls them funds of knowledge. I love that terminology because funds makes us think of an asset. And so that's a good thing, right? So they come with responsibility or anxiety of working maybe in math or something. They come with other things they're dealing with in their personal life. They come with maybe a great base of knowledge because they have been in college before, or they have had real life experiences or experiential opportunities that other students haven't. So they have all these funds of knowledge that they bring into the classroom. And so it's an opportunity for us to really look at their personal values and acknowledge them. So one of the activities that Sia suggests is to give them a list of values and have them circle 3 that really resonates with their own personal values, and then share with the class or share with you. You can get them out of their seats and use Post-it notes or chart paper and have them share in a different way or draw. And then that is an acknowledgement of, the things that they have and what we can work with them, and then what they can share with their classmates. So it's one opportunity for them to just validate what they bring into the classroom. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to acknowledge it. Another suggestion that many people actually have had is to think about your syllabus. Is oftentimes the first thing that students see beside your face on the first day of class or before school starts. And Sia suggests writing these as high hope syllabus. So high expectations and high hope are conveyed in the syllabus. There's a lot of work that's been done out of University of Virginia on the learner-centered syllabus. And they have a great rubric out there and a lot of great research as well that talks about the tone of your syllabus, what you provide to your students and how you say it. It's very important that your syllabus reflects how you are as a professor, and it shouldn't be something that's just generated the same way semester after semester after semester, with the only change being that you're highlighting or bolding, that one thing that irritated you the semester before. So really think about how the syllabus aligns to you and your teaching. And it's not just a document that's handed to students. It can be an engaging piece that they return to, and they should return to all semester long, but you have to put something in there for them to want to read, right? All semester long. So think about that learner-centered language and the tone you want to convey through your syllabus, but at the same time, clear expectations, making sure students understand exactly what to do and where to go, because that helps them eventually, you see, build trust with you. You're telling them what to do and they should be able to do it. Let's say they do it, they should be able to get some feedback, etc. So the next area that Sia talks about, and we've also seen a lot of literature, is identity safety, which is allowing the students, and I hate to use that word allowing, but the students need a place on campus, virtually or in person, where they feel comfortable. And for them, by themselves, without us, without any kind of framework or structure that we put in there. So this might look like where all of the Hispanic or Latina and Latinx students are together in one area, having a great time talking about school, maybe not having a great time talking about things that mean something to them and their own identity. It might mean that our LGBT students are sitting together and doing something in their safe space. So, these are important for our students to be able to feel comfortable and talk and share about what's happening in their own lives. It's not necessary to force all of us to be in one area together. It's okay if they want to be, if my white women want to be together, it's okay for us to be together. I mean, I probably wouldn't do that, but it would be okay. Then moving into some of the work that DiPietro and Hudson did in 2005 that was written from 9/11, from when the country was attacked in 9/11. And we found that through student surveys that what they really craved was being able to trust their professor again and feel empowered in that classroom. And to do that, we can start to provide those clear expectations, transparent assignments. Another way that we build trust is by doing what we said we're going to do. So if you've said you're going to provide feedback to students and allow submission of drafts, then you need to act on that. If you're open for office hours at a certain time, then you need to allow you be there and be available. So you need to be able to create that trust with the students to do what you've said that you are going to do. And then also to empower your students. And a lot of times we've seen work on this by giving them some control in the class. So where Susan was just talking about having the students chart or write or draw their notes from an audio, we could allow them to choose their own groups. We could, that's collaborative note taking. There's a lot of empowerment that comes from them when they're essentially driving that class forward with what their knowledge base and their content is. So giving them some control over some things. Of course, choice of assignments always comes up. Maybe not every assignment, maybe a few assignments you can have an opportunity for choice. And then the other area that DiPietro found when he was doing work with 9/11 and students after and how to return to campus was providing them campus resources, which is what Susan talked about. It's not enough to just tell them, we're here to take care of you. They need to know where the office is that helps them with mental well-being and what's the phone number if they need to call in to a suicide hotline. And what is the information about the food pantry on campus? They need to know these resources. So providing them in your syllabus, maybe in your LMS, you could create a widget with all those types of campus resources. And this goes above and beyond the other resources that we are normally providing to students, which is usually about accommodations and disabilities and things like that. So this goes a little bit beyond that, where we're providing them these resources that have to do with their well-being in the classroom moving forward. Okay. And I just want to take a second to, let's go to the next slide. Judy, I was like, how do I turn this? So the last area here I want to recognize is our faculty and our staff. Of course, the students as well, but particularly we're going to talk about the faculty and the staff. Recognizing the fact that we are experiencing a lot of compassion fatigue. So we've heard often about burnout, and there's emotional fatigue. There's a lot of research behind that. It's not a word that I necessarily throw around a lot because burnout, there's a lot of layers to that, and that's something that's not fixed with a vacation, let's say. But compassion fatigue is something that I think we've all experienced. We have heard stories that have stuck with us. We have worked with students and been flexible to probably an extent that we're not normally flexible about. Maybe late assignments, maybe coming to class, all of these things are appearing in our synchronous classes. So all of these things tend to build on us and stick with us, and that creates this compassion fatigue where we just have been exposed to so much of someone else's trauma, maybe your own, but maybe someone else's trauma. So in order to help us regain our bandwidth, let's think about self-maintenance. So what do you do to disconnect? Do you cook? Do you need to clean? Do you need to, walk or exercise in some way, do some meditation? Those types of things can help us kind of rejuvenate ourselves a little bit. Another suggestion is to debrief what's happening, but not complain. So find a small circle of people that you trust, or maybe one person that you want to debrief what's on your plate right now, what's bothering you right now. But do it in a way that's looking for some type of closure, a solution, or a step forward from that moment, because the complaining is only going to allow you relief for a moment. It's not going to be a long-term effect to affect change. It's just going to give you some relief at that time, and it's not really going to help you get to end goal or the solution, or make at least a step forward from what's been bothering you. And then finally, we are going to actually do this reflecting on your profession. So thinking about what brought you joy and why you are where you are is important for us to kind of recenter ourselves and reclaim that bandwidth again. And so I found this, there were 4 questions about compassion, reflecting on your compassion fatigue. And I put the citation right there. And, this was clearly something post-pandemic provided in one of our Inside Higher Ed articles, but it's 4 really good questions. So we want you to take a moment and share your thoughts about these questions if you feel like you can. If you want to answer a few and not all, they're all anonymous. But we're going to link to a Padlet. Susan put it in the chat. Yeah, someone just said, can you find the 4 questions in the chat? We're going to actually do them right now, Jan. Here are the 4 questions, and we are going to reflect on them right now. So if you could just get in that Padlet and start answering these questions, and then I think Susan's going to do a wrap up of the Padlet. Okay, we'll give you 2 or 3 minutes to reflect.
I'm going to just start responding to some of the things. There's one question under the 4th column, or the one furthest to the right, that I found really interesting. A question: are we really helping students learn real life skills by giving them all these tools and resources, but then when they're professionals, all they will be offered is tips to regain their bandwidth on their own? That's an interesting question. I do think our modeling of how we are maintaining our own well-being and or struggling with it, and being open with our students about the fact that we're not sailing through all of these things every day too, are really important. And I think in looking through some of the answers in the chat to ideas for ways that you can make your classroom into a more hands-on environment, one thing that occurs to me is that I think in general, we need to give ourselves permission to go slower. We don't think about the time that students might need to be able to just handle objects and notice what's interesting about them, or have some opportunity to notice what it is that you want them to pay attention to. And that takes a lot more time than we're used to. I think we're often rushing right ahead to, what's important about this? What do I want you to focus on? And giving them the space and time to kind of go through it as novice learners. This is the first time they've seen this. It's one of the, I think, most common responses as a faculty member to material that we are so familiar with that we just forget to give the kind of time and space to students that they might need the first time they're encountering this. I know during the pandemic, I cut back on quite a bit of my content in one of my classes, and realized that they were just learning it so much better. And I thought, I was teaching too much of this really earlier, and just wasn't giving them enough time to be deeper learners. And again, delivery is not learning. So you can deliver it all. That doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna stick. So let me just ask Josie and Judy too. Are either of you wanting to comment on some of the things on the Padlet here?
I just pulled it up, so I'm gonna.
Yeah.
check it out.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll scroll through
I was
here.
responding.
Yeah. So let me I'll read out some of the things in that, because I can scroll down. Why did I choose this profession? Desire to help. I love teaching. The students. I love to learning. I love helping students understand. Love of learning. Right. I mean, I think that this joy that we get from learning and from guiding others through that process, that's a way to recover bandwidth, right? We're doing something joyful here. And if it's not joyful, then maybe we need to think about more ways to bring joy back into it. Yeah, I like to see young minds grow. It's so wonderful. I mean, I think we all come from a common source of loving learning ourselves and loving to help others learn. The relationships make us feel rewarded.
Seeing a lot of people mentioning getting feedback from their students, like their notes or thank you notes from students or their student evaluations, as one way of feeling rewarded, and that's been helpful. If you don't have a thank a teacher program on your campus, talk to me. It can come out of your CETL, but it could also come out of your individual colleges or schools. So I've found that our faculty are really not motivated, but really feel appreciated after hearing those thank a teachers.
I'm seeing a lot of reward coming from watching students succeed.
Yes, learning.
Mm-hmm.
And just to follow up on that, I think that the practice of reflecting on these questions periodically is helpful, because we know this, about ourselves somewhere, but we don't necessarily think about it. And so, just thinking, about my own profession and reading others' responses, it's like there's this kind of purpose and meaning that's conveyed here. And I think it's helpful, especially now, depending on what stage of maybe kind of exhaustion we may be in, or our students may be in, thinking about why did we get into this is so I'm enjoying reading the responses.
Yeah. And I have to say, I mean, here's a real, I don't know, radical suggestion, but when you do your annual review, which I know is everyone's favorite task during the year, but I think we maybe skip over the chance to savor our successes, and use that opportunity to feel some sense of accomplishment about the learning experiences that we've provided and the relationships that we've built, both with students ourselves, but for them among each other. We should and maybe summer's a good time to do that, even outside of the annual spring review period, to say, I'm going to set aside some time just to recall the nice things that happened in my classrooms over the past year, and why this, these positive experiences are going to allow me to feel like I've got the strength to keep going. All right. I hope you're finding it helpful to see others' responses in the Padlet and gain a sense of shared experiences in this way. So I guess I'm watching the time now. You will have access to this Padlet just after the webinar's over, so that you can continue browsing the answers. And I want to ask Josie and Judy if you have any final thoughts before we wrap up.
I'll just share the reference page here. Can you see is it back in the PowerPoint now?
Yes.
It is.
Okay, all right. Just so people can put their eyes on that, but as Susan mentioned that it would it'll be shared. I would just want to echo something that I mentioned before, and Susan, you said about the kind of coming back slow, and kind of tying this idea of cognitive bandwidth, as even if we've been on campus, we're coming back onto campus maybe in more full force into the classroom, more people, and we're going to be having those interactions, those personal face-to-face interactions that we may not have had for quite a long time. And so some of our bandwidth may be taken up by that kind of almost an overwhelmed feeling of being back in a room with a bunch of people. And so just kind of allowing yourself to experience that process, that be mindful of that is something I know that in my own work, I'm finding myself doing more, because we are creatures of habit, and our habit has been different for the past year, and it's going to take some time to kind of reacclimate and get back into a new routine.
Agreed.
Yes, I don't have anything to add. I think you both rounded it out well.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think Judy, what I connect with as well is that just as we were gentle, we tried to be extra gentle with our students and with ourselves a year ago. Maybe this is what we need to keep in mind this fall as well. Just, this isn't back to normal. Normal's probably never coming back. And so let's be kind to each other and to our students. Go slow and give yourself grace. Exactly, Josie. Thank you. So I hope everyone has a chance to rest over the summer. Thank you very much for taking your time and your energy to share with us in this webinar. And thanks to Denise and the Office of Faculty Development for the opportunity to talk about these issues. And go forth and do good things.
Thanks so much, Susan, Judy, and Josie. That was great. Just so appreciate you all taking the time to come and talk with us today. I just put in the chat the link to the webinar series at the bottom of this page. A link to this webinar will be up within 24 hours. And you can also go to that page to register for future webinars. So we'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone.